Namaste, and welcome back to Eternal Raga, Bhagavad Gita, one shloka every day. Over the last 7 episodes, we have been inside Duryodhana's extraordinary speech to Drona. We watched him provoke his teacher with the memory of Drupada's son, spiral through a fearful catalogue of Pandava Maharathas, pivot desperately to his own side, list 7 tragically noble warriors bound to the wrong cause, and finally sweep his hand over the unnamed masses who have abandoned their lives for my sake. Today, Duryodhana delivers his final verdict. He compares the 2 armies directly, and he does so in a verse that contains one of the most debated words in all of Gita: scholarship, a single Sanskrit word that can mean the exact opposite of itself. The word is aparyaptam, and depending on how you read it, Duryodhana is either brimming with confidence or drowning in doubt. Scholars have disagreed for over 1,000 years. Both readings are grammatically valid, both are psychologically profound, and both reveal something essential about the nature of the mind before battle. This is Sloka 10, the verse where a single word contains 2 opposite truths. Let us listen. The shloka, let us hear this verse in Sanskrit. It is beautifully constructed. 2 parallel half lines mirroring each other in structure but opposing each other in meaning, balanced on the fulcrum of that one pivotal word. Aparyaptam aptam tadasmakam balam Bhishma bhirakshitam paryaptam twidamete sham balam Bhima bhirakshitam. Padached, word by word breakdown. This verse is a masterwork of parallel construction. The first line describes the Kaurava army. The second line mirrors it exactly for the Pandava army. Let us walk through each word. Aparyaptam. This is the word that has generated centuries of scholarly debate. In Sanskrit, the prefix a typically negates what follows. Paryapta can mean either sufficient, adequate, limited, or measurable, bounded. Adding a, therefore, gives us either insufficient, inadequate, or immeasurable, unlimited. The word holds 2 diametrically opposite meanings within itself. Tat, that, referring to the Kaurava army positioned at a distance from where Duryodhana is speaking. Asmakam, our, belonging to us. The familiar first-person plural possessive that Duryodhana uses for the Kaurava side. Balam, strength, army, military force. From the root bal, meaning power, might. Here, it refers not just to physical strength, but to the entire military apparatus, the combined fighting power of all the Kaurava forces. Bhishma abhirakshitam, protected by Bhishma, guarded by Bhishma, marshaled under Bhishma's command. Abhirakshitam means fully protected, completely guarded. The prefix abhi intensifies the protection. This is not casual guardianship, but complete, encompassing defense. Bhishma, the grandsire, the man who can choose the moment of his own death, the warrior whom no one on the field can truly defeat, stands as the protector of the Kaurava army. Paryaptam, the mirror word. If aparyaptam means unlimited, then paryaptam means limited. If aparyaptam means insufficient, then paryaptam means sufficient. The 2 words work as a pair. They must be read as opposites of each other, whatever interpretation you choose. 2. But, however, the conjunction of contrast, marking the shift from the Kaurava assessment to the Pandava assessment. Idam, this. In contrast to tat, that, idam, this, points to something closer. The Pandava army is this, present, visible, immediate. Etesam, of these, of theirs, referring to the Pandavas and their forces. Bhima abhirakshitam, protected by Bhima. Note the devastating parallel. The Kaurava army is guarded by Bhishma, the grandsire, and the Pandava army is guarded by Bhima, the terrifying Pandava. The two names are almost identical in sound, Bhishma and Bhima, creating a phonetic mirror that reinforces the structural parallelism of the verse. For Duryodhana, speaking Bhima's name in the context of the enemy's protection is particularly painful. Bhima is the man who vowed to break Duryodhana's thigh. Bhima is Duryodhana's personal nemesis. Full translation, two versions. Because this verse can be read two ways, here are both translations. Reading 1, the confident interpretation. Our army, protected by Bhishma, is unlimited in strength, whereas their army, protected by Bhima, is limited. Reading 2, the anxious interpretation. Our army, even though protected by Bhishma, is insufficient, whereas their army, protected by Bhima, is more than sufficient. Same Sanskrit, same words, completely opposite meanings, and both are valid.
The great debate. Which reading is correct? Scholars have lined up on both sides of this question for over a millennium. Let us examine the major positions. The confident reading, aparyaptam equals unlimited. Anandagiri, Shankarananda, and Swami Mukundananda support this interpretation. In this reading, Duryodhana is asserting that his army is immeasurably powerful under Bhishma's protection, while the Pandava army, led by the comparatively less experienced Bhima, is merely sufficient, adequate, but not overwhelming. This is Duryodhana at his most boastful, attempting to reassure Drona and himself that they have the superior force. Prabhupada's reading aligns with this. Duryodhana thinks that the strength of his armed forces is immeasurable, being specifically protected by the most experienced general, grandfather Bhishma. On the other hand, the forces of the Pandavas are limited, being protected by a less experienced general, Bhima, who is like a fig in the presence of Bhishma. The anxious reading, aparyaptam equals insufficient. Sridhara Swami and Sri Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur support this interpretation. In this reading, Duryodhana is admitting, perhaps unconsciously, that his army is not enough even with Bhishma's protection. The Pandava army, protected by Bhima, is paryaptam, sufficient, well-equipped, formidable. Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur's reading is particularly striking. Our troops are not up to standard. We cannot fight against the Pandavas. Even though protected all around by Bhishma, who has fine intelligence and is experienced in fighting, Bhishma has partiality for both sides. The Pandavas are very well protected by Bhima. In other words, they are well equipped to fight against us. This reading exposes the fracture at the heart of the Kaurava army. Bhishma's protection is compromised by his love for the Pandavas. Why both readings are simultaneously true? Here is where a Sanskrit scholar must step beyond the either-or framework and recognize the genius of Vyasa's composition. Sanskrit is a language of extraordinary semantic density. Words routinely carry multiple meanings, and great poets exploit this ambiguity deliberately. Vyasa is the greatest poet in the Sanskrit tradition. The ambiguity of aparyaptam is not a flaw in the text. It is the text's deepest teaching. Both readings are true because both realities coexist within Duryodhana's mind. On the surface, he is projecting confidence. Our army is unlimited, theirs is limited. But underneath that projection, the truth bleeds through. Our army is insufficient. Theirs is more than enough. The word aparyaptam captures the exact psychological state of a man who is performing confidence while experiencing doubt. This is how the mind works before any great confrontation. You tell yourself, I am ready, I am strong, I have everything I need. And simultaneously, a deeper voice whispers, it is not enough. You are not prepared. They are stronger than you think. Both voices speak at once. And in Sanskrit, both voices can inhabit the same word. This is not indecisive scholarship. This is the Mahabharata operating at the level of literary genius. Vyasa has crafted a single word that contains both the mask and the face beneath it. Bhishma versus Bhima, the phonetic mirror. The verse is structured as a perfect mirror. The first half describes the Kaurava strength. The second half describes the Pandava strength. And the two protectors whose names anchor each half are almost phonetically identical, Bhishma and Bhima. But beneath this sonic similarity lies a profound contrast. Bhishma is the grandsire, ancient, wise, experienced, practically immortal through his boon of choosing his own death. He represents the accumulated weight of tradition, authority, and institutional power. His protection is that of a fortress, massive, immovable, and deeply established. Bhima is the opposite. He is raw, volcanic, personal. His strength is not institutional, but primal. The strength of a man who fights with the fury of one who has seen his wife humiliated and his family robbed of everything. Bhima's protection is not a fortress, it is a fire, and fires consume fortresses. Duryodhana trusts Bhishma's protection, but he fears Bhima's rage. And both responses are embedded in the architecture of this verse. There is a deeper irony that Duryodhana cannot see. Bhishma protects the Kaurava army, but Bhishma does not fully support the Kaurava cause. His heart is divided. He has told Duryodhana to his face that Dharma is with the Pandavas. A protector whose heart is not fully in the fight is a wall with cracks. Bhima, by contrast, is protecting an army whose cause he believes in absolutely. His commitment is total. A smaller army with total commitment will always outperform a larger army with divided loyalty. Ramanujacharya's reading, the narrative context. Ramanujacharya's commentary on this verse draws attention to the broader narrative arc. After viewing both armies, the Pandava forces protected by Bhima and his own forces protected by Bhishma, Duryodhana has been conveying his assessment to Drona. Ramanuja reads the entire speech, Shlokas 3 to 10, as Duryodhana's recognition that Bhima's forces are adequate for conquering the Kaurava forces and his own forces are inadequate for victory against the Pandavas. In Ramanuja's reading, the next verse, where Bhishma suddenly blows his conch to cheer Duryodhana, makes perfect sense. Bhishma sees the despondency on his grandson's face and acts to rally his spirits. If Duryodhana were genuinely confident, Bhishma would have no need to intervene with an encouraging gesture. The grandsire's conch blast in Shloka 11 is the response to the despair that Shloka 10 betrays. The role of the Abhirakshaka, protector of the army. Swami Chinmayananda offers an important clarification about the military term Abhirakshitam, protected by. In the ancient Indian art of warfare, each army had two key roles. The commander-in-chief, who directed strategy and troop movements, and the Abhirakshaka or defender, a warrior of exceptional power whose role was to shield the army, hold the line,
and serve as the last wall between the enemy and a total collapse. In the Kaurava army, Bhishma served as both supreme commander and principal defender. In the Pandava army, the supreme commander was Dhrishtadyumna, but the defender, the man whose physical presence held the army together, was Bhima. This distinction matters because it tells us what Duryodhana is really comparing. He is not comparing generals or strategists. He is comparing shields. Whose shield is stronger? Whose defender will hold when the storm hits? And his answer, whether confident or anxious, hinges on whether Bhishma's divided heart can outperform Bhima's total commitment.
Living the Shloka. What this means for us today. This verse is about the stories we tell ourselves before the moment of truth arrives. Every one of us has stood where Duryodhana stands. Before a job interview, before a difficult conversation, before a creative performance, before any moment where we will be tested, we tell ourselves a story. And that story almost always contains both voices, the confident one and the doubting one. I am ready and I am not enough. Both speak at once. Both are real. The question is not which voice to listen to. The question is which voice you build your actions on. Duryodhana's tragedy is not that he doubts. Everyone doubts. His tragedy is that he has built his entire enterprise on the wrong foundation. No amount of confident self-talk can compensate for a fundamentally unjust cause. You can have Bhishma himself as your protector, and it still will not be enough if the thing you are protecting does not deserve protection. The Pandava army is smaller. Its protector Bhima lacks Bhishma's centuries of experience. But it is fighting for dharma, and that single fact makes it paryaptam, sufficient, complete, enough. Not because of numbers or weapons, but because of what it represents. In your own life, when you face a great challenge, the most important question is not, do I have enough resources? It is my cause worth fighting for? If the answer is yes, then whatever you have is aparyaptam in the best sense, immeasurable, boundless, more than sufficient. Because dharma has a way of multiplying whatever is offered in its service. A scholarly note. The end of Duryodhana's speech, Shloka 10, is the final verse of Duryodhana's address to Drona. Across 8 verses, 3 through 10, the prince of Hastinapura has delivered a speech that began as manipulation, spiraled into fear, attempted to recover through counter-listing, and ended with a comparative judgment that scholars cannot even agree on. Drona has not spoken a single word in response. Not one. This extended silence from the Acharya is itself a commentary. Drona, the greatest military teacher alive, has listened to his students' entire assessment and offered nothing. No reassurance, no correction, no strategy, just silence. Why? Perhaps because there is nothing to say. Drona knows the truth that Duryodhana is circling around but cannot face. The Kaurava cause is unjust, and no amount of military analysis can change that fundamental reality. You can count warriors, you can compare protectors, you can list weapons, but you cannot make adharma into dharma by wishing hard enough. Tomorrow, someone else will break the silence. Bhishma, the grandsire, will see the despair on Duryodhana's face and act. He will blow his conch, not as a battle signal, but as a gesture of encouragement, a grandfather trying to lift his grandson's spirits. And with that sound, the war will truly begin. Today's reflection. Here is the thought to carry with you today. When I assess my own readiness for the challenges ahead, can I hear both voices? The confident one and the doubting one? And more importantly, am I building on the right foundation? Because if what I am protecting is worth protecting, whatever I have is enough. And if it is not worth protecting, then no amount of strength will ever feel sufficient. Duryodhana had the larger army. He had a greater number of warriors. He had Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Kripa, and Ashwatthama. And he still felt, however he tried to suppress it, that it was not enough. The Pandavas had a smaller force, a less experienced protector, and every material disadvantage. And they had Krishna. Not Krishna the warrior. Krishna had vowed not to fight. Krishna the guide. Krishna the conscience. Krishna the dharma. When your cause is right, the presence of dharma itself is your protector. And that is a protection no army can overcome. What lies ahead? Tomorrow, in Sloka 11, the atmosphere on the battlefield shifts dramatically. Bhishma, sensing Duryodhana's despondency, roars like a lion and blows his conch shell. The sound shatters the silence, and with it, every other warrior on the Kaurava side begins to sound their instruments. Conch shells, kettle drums, bugles, trumpets and horns, all at once in a tumultuous uproar. The quiet tension of assessment is over. The war is about to begin. Thank you for being here. 10 shlokas into the Gita, and we have completed Duryodhana's entire speech without hearing a single word from Krishna, without reaching Arjuna's crisis, and yet the Gita has already taught us more about fear, attachment, manipulation, misplaced loyalty, and the nature of the ego than most self-help books manage in 300 pages. That is the depth of this text. Every verse is a well without a bottom. If this episode gave you something to think about, share it with someone who is standing at their own crossroads, telling themselves stories about whether they are ready. Subscribe so you never miss a shloka. And remember, the more we share this wisdom, the more it grows. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Eternal Raga, where wisdom meets peace.